Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're so excited to have you here today for the last webinar in our webinar series, where we've been showing you how to turbocharge your practice with eClinicalWorks analytics. Today is actually the last session of our three-part series. If you did miss the last two, where we talked about the safety and compliance dashboard, the MIPS dashboard, and the provider hub, don't worry, we have all of those recorded and we'll make sure you receive that link after today's webinar, of course, with the link to today's recording. But for today, we have an exciting agenda lined up. We're going to focus on the PM Analytics dashboard and eBO. And then your speakers today, of course, include myself, Caitlin Hausman, and then my colleagues, Terese Molinere, she is one of our eClinicalWorks certified trainers, and Kim White, one of our client performance managers. And if you don't know about us here at Revele, just a quick intro, why we're presenting on eClinicalWorks, and it's really because we're the eClinicalWorks experts. So that is really where we start with our eClinicalWorks medical billing, training, optimization services. You might actually know us by Group 1 Health Source. We rebranded last year. So Revele is our new name and look, but still the same company. We've been around for over 25 years now, and we've really seen how complicated healthcare reimbursement and optimization of eClinicalWorks has become. So that's what we set out to do, is to make all of that easier for our customers. And we do that, like I said, by providing a range of eClinicalWorks solutions like what you see here on my screen, whether that's training, support, optimization, custom reporting, and of course, our end-to-end RCM services. And practices that usually come to us are frustrated with either their system or their workflows and really want to maximize the capabilities of ECW. And that's pretty common considering how robust the software has become. We also partner with those clinics that just need a partner for their medical billing for whatever reason, if they can't find the right staff to do that in-house, or if they're just looking to take that to the next level. So if you're considering any of those, we'd love to hear from you and learn more about your practice. You can visit our website to get in touch with us, or you can reply to one of the emails that we're going to send out later today. And that's really why we're presenting on eClinicalWorks. And then a few housekeeping items before I hand it over to Terese. We do record these, and we also have we've had a really great response actually on the past two with the Q&A panel. So on that panel on the right side of your screen, you'll have a box where you can type in questions while Terese and Kim are presenting, and then we'll transition into Q&A at the end today. So I'm super excited to see what kind of questions you guys have for us. And Terese, I'm gonna switch you over to the presenter now so you can dive into the PM Analytics dashboard.
Welcome everyone to our webinar today. And today I'm going to be presenting on practice management analytics. And so practice management analytics enables a practice to view billing activity. This section provides an overview of a practice financial information on the practice management analytics window. Again, it will allow you to billing managers, office managers, and other staff members responsible for day-to-day processing of claims, posting payments, refunds, and collecting on accounts, all from one window. So getting started, first, the Analytics tab found over on the left, over underneath the menu, is only available in browser, of which I'm presenting on today. The second requirement is that you have to have permissions. So if I go to Menu, and I go to File, and I go to Security Settings, I'm going to go by Security Attribute. That's my favorite for searching within security settings. And it is enable, whoops, if I could spell, practice. So down at the bottom, do you see where it says enable practice management analytics? Once you click on it, then it will provide the staff members over to the right-hand side. You simply click on the boxes for those particular staff members and then click save. You'll have to log out and log back in for those permissions to take effect. Now, just a second. So now I'm going to dive into the practice management analytics. Again, I'm going to go to the analytics tile over on the left, and I'm going to go to practice management analytics. You can also, if this is someplace that you're going to visit regularly, you can build it as a favorite as well by clicking the star. Once I am in the Practice Management Analytics tab, you can see this screen is divided one by claim responsibility with the pie graph, and then over to the right, you will see that you have claims, payments, statements, and settings. They're the tabs that run across the top of your window. Now, if we start by claim responsibility, in order to set up this pie graph, you do have to go to the settings tab. Notice I have insurance, patient, practice, and of course, other. This is going to be depending upon your practice and what you want to see. So if I click on settings, I can click this add to display box to add what I've already added: insurance, payment, patient, and denials. You can add whatever you want here. Now, what's critical is that these right here that's fallen in this left-hand side are claim status codes. And these claim status codes pull from billing and codes and claim status codes. It's the same list. So you see I have pending, ready to submit, submitted, patient, self-pay, all kinds. This is very specific to your practice. So again, I'm in a trainer database, so we don't have all of the things that you may have in your practice database. So again, don't judge what I have here based on what you have, and you can set it up very specifically to your practice requirements. So if I go to look at one I've added, insurance, and I click on my pencil to edit, you can pick from the claim status codes that are applicable for you, right? And as you pick them and you use the arrows right here in the middle to bring them over, once you pick them, they fall off of this list here on the left. Okay, so you can see for my insurance, I have submitted, clearinghouse accepted, insurance accepted. These are just a couple of them that I've picked at random, right? If I go to patient, I have patient and self-pay. And then my practice, I chose pending, ready to submit, pending with errors, hold coding and actions to practice. Again, these were all on this left-hand side, but as I pulled them over, they're dropping off. So this is all that I have left now. And then I actually added denials. But again, all of these options are very specific to your practice. So if I go back to claims and back to claim responsibility, here's my pie graph. I can click anywhere on this pie graph and it's going to open it up. You can see I have 16 claims, which you're going to have many more than that. Remember, I'm in my training database, right? And so you have filters up at the top. This claim responsibility, right, is a visual representation of your last 90 days. Okay, so that's why it's defaulting the way that it is. You have the ability to use any of these filters: patient name, provider, facility, balance, and then filter. You also have the ability to actually click on a claim if you wanted to. So if I were to click on this one, it would open up to a claim. Okay, and if I want, I can change my claim status from here. I can actually work these claims from here as well. If I go back to my pie graph again and I open it up, my pie chart, and I click on tabular, I can do it either way. Now, though, I'm going to click on my claim count and it brings me to the same window. Okay, so again, you can apply the filters and you can actually click on the individual claims and work them from there. Again, this is very specific to your practice. Anywhere where there is a count number, do you see at the bottom I have claim status, claim count, charges, payments, adjustments, and balance? Anywhere on here, I can look, and if I wanted to click on 16 from here, it gives me the same information that I had up at the top as well. And if I click on 16, it will open me up the same claims. So I just want to let you know that it's information, though, information based on what? Based on the claim status codes that were pulled from here. So that's very important for whatever you want to see in that pie chart has to be set up from that particular window prior. Okay. So now when I get into claims, payment statements, and settings, okay, I'm going to get into claims first. Claims is divided by your current month, your previous month, your last 90 days, and your year to date. So if I were going to click on any one of these counts, I can click on the count and open it up. And it's going to display, I have 3, right? You're going to have many. I have my date range filters, my patient name provider, the same filters, right, that I had even from my pie graph, from my pie chart. I can click on any one of these claims, and you just click on the blue hyperlink to drill down, and then from even within that window, now I can see my claim details. I can see of the claim status, I can see my CPT codes, the dollar amount, all of that information here from my claim screen. I can also, if I wanted to, export this information to Excel. Now, that's going into your claim date. You have claim date, service date, and anything that is outside of this range. Down at the bottom, there is a more data button. And this more data button, you can actually specify your specific date range, patient name, all of those filters, and then filter down and it'll pull that data. So just remember that if there's something that you want to look at outside of the current month, previous month, last 90 days, or year to date, you're going to have to use this more data button. Okay. Next, we'll move on to the payments dashboard. So here in the payments dashboard, you can see I don't have many payments coming in. We are a very poor practice, this trainer database. So if I do click on this insurance payment, I can actually see the payment date that United Healthcare made their payment, right? I have the ability, though, you see my blue hyperlink, I can click on that payment and I can see the allocations for that particular payment. And if I wanted to, do you see this plus sign right here? I can even go one step further and look and see how it was allocated by CPT code. So if I go ahead and click OK, again, all of this information, don't forget that you can export to Excel. I also, down in the refund summary, again, it is, you simply click on the number to open it up. Apologize for my delay. And you can actually see, and again, I click on my blue hyperlink date, and it will drill down to where I can see the information. Again, I do have that, the plus sign where if I had allocated it, it would be in here. So just wanted to let you be aware that that information is available at a glance. Again, I have the ability to export to Excel. If I go to my statements dashboard, it's going to open up. It's divided into 2 sections as well. You have collection and you have write-off, and you have the statements summary. So the statement dashboard enables the practice to display those collections and write-offs and statements that have been processed. Okay, so I do not have any collection write-off information, but I do have statements. So if I click on my statements, I can click on this count. And if I want, remember I have my date range here, but I'm going to click on Jane Seiler. And if I open this up, I will have to change my date range to see information. And if I uncheck this and click filter again, I can see more information. So what it does is when you go to that patient, it will actually allow you to see the patient inquiry details. Same patient inquiry details that you can see from, the hub, the patient's hub will also display here. I can then even go and drill down into a claim as well, if I wanted to. Come on. Hang on. It's hung up a little bit. See if I can get it to go. I apologize, but I'm going to go ahead and close out of here. And I want you to know that in this statements window, you have the ability that over here on the right, you do have the ability to view that statement and print that statement. If I go ahead and close out of here, and that concludes my presentation for today, Caitlin, and I'm going to turn it over to Kim now.
Thanks. Thank you, Terese.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that was a great presentation by Terese of going through a lot of information to give you an overall view of claims, charges, payments, statements, things of that nature, right within the application without having to go to eBO, even though it's very easy to get to eBO. So, but what we're going to do now is we're going to go over some basic information about how to maneuver through eBO and some of the things that are available through there. And then we're also going to talk about some reports as well in a few different categories. So I'm going to start out with going through quick links, search, classic view versus portal view, identifying report packages, creating folders, and running reports in the background. So if you're familiar with eBO, and you know about the My Folders, if you're on that portal view, this is just a very quick way that you can get to that My Folders section. All right, then we also have the ECW forum. So if you are not part of that ECW users forum, it is very helpful, not just for EBO, but with anything eClinicalWorks related. There are connections there to eClinicalWorks staff, but also to other users, which a lot of times is what's helpful, is to be able to ask questions, see how other people are using eClinicalWorks or EBO. So this is just a quick way, maybe if you are looking at a report or trying to find something and you want to go out there to that ECW users forum, you can do that directly from that portal view on that link. I'm going to close that. Also ECW ideas. So some of you guys might be familiar with that site as well. It's a great tool if you have specific ideas in regards to enhancements or things that could be added within eClinicalWorks or EBO. I'm going to gear it more towards EBO since that's what our presentation is on today. But this is a quick way that you can get to that link to do that. And then the other two links can be very helpful for EBO specifically as well. So if you want to see any videos that are out there related to EBO, you can click on that link and it's going to take you directly to eClinicalWorks channel with quite a few EBO videos that they have. Now, you can get to those from the my.eClinicalWorks portal too, but this is a quick way that you can get to that information. And there's some really great videos out there. And then last but not least for these quick links is the help. So if you need to get to the my.eClinicalWorks portal, maybe you're working on a report or looking at something and there's an error that you find. And if you use them as your support vendor and you need to open a support ticket, or if you want to get out to other documentation, maybe about EBO. From this portal view, you can click on that help link and it's going to take you directly to the my.eClinicalWorks site. So those are just some helpful tips on those quick links at the bottom. So now I'm going to touch base on the search. So if you are in this portal view, a lot of people do prefer to stay there. Maybe they're not in EBO all that much. If you are on this portal view, a lot of times if maybe you know a report number or a certain keyword you're looking for, maybe to find a report, you don't have to switch to the classic view, although we'll go through that next. It's very easy to do. You can use this search at the top. And let's say I was looking for report 31.01. I can type that in the search bar. I can click enter, and then it's going to populate those results for me. So you can do that within the portal view or the classic view. So I know I've said that a few times now, portal view versus classic view. So this portal view, which is what you're seeing right now, kind of this modern view, it's existed for several years. Some people really like it. eClinicalWorks put it together just for kind of their overall popular common report in these particular categories for daily, month-end, financial, and administrative. So, it really helps you get to those reports quickly. But if you prefer the classic view, or if you're wanting to see other reports that are in the eBO package, and maybe you're just not sure what to search for, or just want to look at everything overall, or get to some custom folders, then you can click on the classic view, and then this is going to be that standard view that a lot of you guys are probably very familiar with. So for the rest of the presentation, until we get to the slides, I'm going to stay here in this classic view. The next thing I'm going to touch on quickly is identifying the report package. So here we're in our test environment, so we only have one eBO package loaded here, but oftentimes with clients, you will have several report packages that are there. You know, if you've been on eClinicalWorks a long time, you might have, you know, eBO 5 still loaded and all the different versions. So they are really good, eClinicalWorks is, about when there is a new package loaded, then on those previous packages, they'll put in the name what package that is. And usually the most current package is going to be the one that's simply just titled ECW eBO. But if you are needing to know what package you're on, you know, maybe you're looking at documentation and it says, hey, this report's available in this package, or if you are having an issue with support and they want to verify what report package that you're on, how you can do that if you're not sure is from the package, if you click on More, and then if you go to Set Properties, in the description here, that is going to show you what version that you're on. And again, we're in a test environment, so our package is a little bit older. But if I needed to answer that question, I would say, okay, my package is 7.0.1. So that is how you can identify that report package. I'm going to go back here. And now I'm going to talk about creating folders. So you see here I have a folder that's called Test, and that is a custom folder that I created. So oftentimes with clients, we do find, you know, of all various sizes, we will find clients who want to have specific reports. Maybe they want all their clinical reports in one folder and rev cycle reports in another, productivity reports in another. You can create folders to put report views in that. Now, I'm not going to touch on report views today, but if you are curious about that, we can maybe talk about that in the Q&A, or you can do some research through the eBO documentation on the my.eClinicalWorks site for that. But if I wanted to create a custom folder, I simply can click on where I'm going to hover over now. It's a little folder with a plus sign, and it says New Folder. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go ahead and call this rev cycle. Now, I can put a description and a screen tip in there, but just of what I want to see on that screen, I'll just put that in the name. Now, you do see here in the location that it says it's at the public folder level, which for these purposes, that's where I want that to be, just on that home page, essentially. So I'm going to click Finish, and now you see that folder is there. Now, if you created that folder and there's nothing in it, and you're like, oh, I didn't end up needing to create that or something like that, if you want to delete it, you can click in the checkbox next to that folder name and then go up to the red X to delete it. But I do want to touch base on if you want to create a folder within a folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the new folder option again. And now I'm going to call this Manager. So maybe in my rev cycle report folder, I want to have reports that the manager looks at, that the director looks at, maybe end users look at, and just kind of separate that out. So if I title this Manager, I don't want that to be at the public folder level. I want that to be in the rev cycle folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Select Another Location. I'm going to click in the little radio button next to rev cycle. Click OK. You'll now see that it shows my tab Public Folders to Rev Cycle, and I'll click Finish. So now you still see the Rev Cycle folder, but to see that subfolder that I created, I would click on that folder, and now you see the Manager folder right in there. Okay? And then before I talk about some of the reports that we really prefer, I'm going to touch base on running reports in the background. So I'm just going to go through here and select a random report. So this 11.01 day sheet payment by user, which we are going to talk about that report in a few minutes. So a lot of times people, whether it's maybe a resource intensive report needs to be run at nighttime, or maybe you have several reports that you want to go in and run. And instead of sitting there for, potentially an hour, if you have a list of reports you need to run, instead of sitting there waiting for one to get done, then going to the next one, you have the ability that you can do what they call run reports in the background. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little blue arrow here next to that report, and that's going to give me my run with option. So to run it in the background, in the upper right-hand corner where it says Use Advanced Options, I'm going to click on that. And there's several different things that are here on this screen. But if I want to run it in the background, I'm going to click in the radio button next to Run in the Background. Now, I have the ability, I can run that in the background now. So essentially what you'll do is you can set your prompts that we're going to go through and then go on to another report and either run it, at the same time or set that to run in the background, or you could schedule it even to run later. So if I want it now, I'm going to keep that selected. But if maybe I want this report to run at 5 o'clock tonight, then I could set that time here, or I could put a different date. Another thing that's really nice about running reports in the background is, let's say you need a few different output versions. So maybe you want to see it in HTML, but you might need a copy in Excel. You might need a copy in PDF potentially. Instead of having to see that report at the HTML level and then go in and export it separately into Excel or into PDF, you can set this within when you're running it in the background to run in those different formats as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select those. Not going to talk about the delivery side and all of that today that you're seeing, but then I also want to keep this prompt for value. So if I have specific filters that I want to set within the prompt of that report, I want to make sure that I have that box selected, which it will be by default. So I'm going to go ahead and click Run. And this might take, it's already popped up. Okay. So if I wanted to set those prompts here, I could certainly do that. I'm just going to keep everything the way it is. It'll be a very low volume because it is our test environment. So once I would set my prompt, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's just confirming what's going to run. I'll say OK again. And then when that report is done running in the background, you will see a difference here in how there's kind of this multi-piece of paper icon that's here, and you don't see that on the others. So once that report is run, that's the icon that you're going to see. A lot of times when people run reports in the background, they then want to know, without going through the configuration and advanced settings further, how can they get to that report or know that it's run. So underneath the actions, they would then click on the output version icon, and then they're going to see here over on the right-hand side those different formats. So like I talked about, I set it to run in HTML, Excel, and PDF. This is where I can see those different formats. Okay? So that's the overview of some of the customizations kind of at a basic level you can do with an eBO to make things easier for you as far as getting to reports, running them in the background, and things like that. So now, Caitlin, if you can go back over to the slide. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move to the next one. Okay, thank you. So these are going to be some of the front end or mid-office reports that we talk about. And I have a couple in each category. So the categories we're going to cover are the front end, mid-office, rev cycle, financial, and exception reports. So for the front end and mid-office, the most popular report that there probably is out there is report number 11.01, day sheet payments by user. So this is something that's good at a manager level, at an end user level, really anybody, to see those payments coming in daily and to see what types of transactions those are. So within those filters, of course, with all of these reports that we're going to talk about, you have the ability to set a date range. If you want to see an overview kind of at a summary level of those payments by user, you can do that if you want to see the detail, or if you want both, summary and detail, which a lot of times people will do. You can see that. And you have the ability, you can view the day sheet payments by user for all facilities and all users, but you also can pick particular facility names or usernames, and you can multi-select as well. So that a lot of times is good for the end users. Let's say they've got their cash drawer and they're closing out, and they just need to see a report for what they've posted because they've been the only one on that drawer. Then, obviously they would just want to look at it. They select their name in the username field. So some of the things you're able to see from that report, you can see the payment type. So whether it was cash, check, credit card, that's going to include custom payment type. So, and we'll talk about that actually in the next report. Maybe you've got copay, custom payment type, copay cash, copay credit card, things like that. It's going to show that detail. It's also going to show the patient that those payments, like in the detail section, it'll show the patient that that payment was allocated to. It's going to show insurance that it was from, so Anthem, UHC, so on and so forth. The date of that payment, the payment ID, and the amount. So again, a lot of that's going to show in the detail, but at the summary level, you can see all of that really rolled up. How many particular transactions you had for a certain payment type, for a certain insurance, and so on and so forth. So we'll go ahead now and talk about report number 11.02, which is the copay report. So I already mentioned the copay a little bit, but a disclaimer on this report, and you will see it when you go to run that report, is you must, in order for that to work, you must have custom payment types that have the word copay as a prefix in all capital letters. So what this report is really good for is to be able to show you the expected copay, and that's going to pull from the copay amount that's listed in that patient's chart, which of course then links to the encounter. You're also going to be able to see if your team has properly used those copay payment types, if they collected that amount that was posted under that particular payment type. You can see if they've posted payments for other balances. So it's basically any payment then that's tied to a payment type not starting with copay. And then you can see total collected, and then any variances, and get some percentages as well. So the prompts are pretty basic in that. Date range, again, kind of like the previous report, you can look for all appointment providers or all facilities, multi-select, or just pick, one particular one. On that report, I would say too, there's an omit visit status filter, and it's really important to make sure you do look at that, because if you have patients that are on the schedule and they've canceled or they've no-showed, or they were left pending or something like that, basically they were never seen. That expected copay, if you don't omit those visit statuses, then that's going to show as that you expected to get that copay and you didn't get it. Well, you didn't get it because they didn't come in. So make sure that you omit those particular visit statuses. But for that, I already talked about a little bit what you can see on that report. It's very nice to show you how much you were expected to collect and how much you actually collected. So let's say that, like with your total collected or your expected copay, let's say that was $20 and the copay amount shows 0. Other paid maybe shows 20, so that's a sign right there that the user didn't use the copay payment type. But your total collected would be 20. Your copay variant would be a negative 20, and then your copay percent collected would be 0. So that's essentially what would show on that report. So now we can switch gears a little bit to a report that is more for scheduling. So the report number 13.04 is your available slots report. So this is really good at a manager level, or front desk supervisor, whatever that may be. If you want to see at a high level upcoming available slots that you have at a facility or a provider level based on the working hours that are set within that schedule. So instead of having to go into the system and kind of manually look and do counts in that, you can use this report. So you can set the date range you're looking for, maybe specific times. Maybe you just want to see in the afternoon what you have available. Again, facility or provider, you can look for all visit types, but if you want to see, a particular visit type or a couple different visit types, then you can search for that. And then if you're looking for maybe certain days of the week. But once that report is run, you're able to see the available appointment date, the start date and the time, the end date and time, and then it will count for you. So let's say at facility A for Dr. Smith, they find that on Monday, October 5th, there are 3 available slots. Then on that report, you would essentially really see it in that order. It would show you I've got 3 available appointments within this time frame on this date for Dr. Smith at facility A. So that's a really good report, again, just to see at a high level, and kind of even, look at what's unfilled, what's just sitting there and not being used based on the working hours that are set. So now I'm going to talk about a report that looks at claim creation date versus when a progress note was completed. So for this, you're going to have some common filters. You can set this for a particular service date range. You can look for all providers or certain ones, same for facility. And then for visit status. So that's kind of like with the copay report. You would want to make sure that visit status, that you're not including visit statuses that are patients who weren't seen, canceled, no-shows, things like that, because, obviously there would be still, it should be an empty progress note, but it's a non-billable visit because they weren't seen. So you're not going to have a claim for that. So make sure you're looking at that visit status in the filters. But then whenever that report is run, you get some brief patient details, like an account number or patient name. You'll get an encounter ID from there. There'll also be a column for billable versus non-billable. So a lot of times with this report, I will encourage people to export that report into Excel where they can filter out the non-billable and only look at the billable ones. The chart lock status, so it's going to say, yes or no, that's been locked. And then if it has been locked, it's going to give you that progress note lock date. Once a claim is created, it will give you that claim number and then the date that was created. Now, if that progress note was locked, but there's still not a claim, then the values are not going to be there because you don't have a claim yet, and so there's no claim number and then no date. So that's a really good report just to look at. If you're using a scheduled job to create claims from lock notes, or if daily, you have someone going in, whatever your process is, that progress note completion date versus claim creation date should be pretty close. But, if you're trying to determine, maybe you have a more manual process and you're trying to determine any lags there could be there or anything missed, this is a good report to use. So then the next set of reports in the front end and mid-office section I'm going to talk about is referrals. So we have an incoming referral report, which is 4.04, and then an outgoing referral report, which is 4.05. So the incoming report gives a lot more detail than the outgoing, but they're both still great reports. So for on the incoming report, you're able to see that referral status, whether it's open, closed, things like that, who the referral was from, brief patient details, again, patient name, account number, things like that. If you have the referral authorization number loaded to that referral, the start and end date, what insurance that's for, and then if you use the section of how many visits were allowed, and then if you're linking encounters to that, so it will track how many were used, you're able to see that information there. So this report I've seen used for a lot of different reasons. Some are getting incoming referral counts, some are looking at, counts of who's referring to them, referrals that are open or closed, different things like that. But I've also seen practices use this as kind of a checks and balances to make sure that all the referrals that are in the system, maybe they're using it, that module strictly for authorization. This is a report that can show them, hey, you've got, X amount of incoming referrals out there that don't have an authorization number, you know, and then that can be a work list for someone to work on those. Or if they're wanting to see of open referrals or active referrals, how many of those of the visits that were allowed, if all those visits have been used already, you know, or maybe there's 7 visits allowed, but 6 have been used, you know, then that can be a work list that before that patient comes in again, you know, whatever time frame that may be, that they need to start looking at that for that next referral or authorization. So that's a really, really good report. The outgoing referral report is a little bit more basic. It will include who the referral's from, who it's to, specialty, and then account. So that's really good if you're just trying to get a volume count. Now, there are some other referral reports too. And then also if you have eBO Report Studio, you know, you can play around and customize that to get a little bit more information. I've seen a lot of clients do that or work with ECW. But that's the main outgoing referral report. So that concludes the section of the front end and mid office. So now we're going to talk about revenue cycle and financial reports. We have a few in that section to go through. So the first one I'm going to cover is report 31.01, the aging summary analysis. And again, there's quite a few AR reports out there, but this is one of the most common ones that is reviewed and recommended. So for that, you've got your filters you see here, claim date versus service date. Now, my disclaimer really on that is, and it's going to be really on all of these reports, is if you are trying to figure out AR aging from the time that AR really went on the book, you need to make sure you're looking at claim date. Now, if in your practice, if there's not a very long lag at all, maybe less than 48 hours between your service date, or between that service being rendered, that note getting locked, and a claim getting created, then things aren't, you know, your numbers aren't going to vary too much between that claim date and service date, but still, I would highly recommend claim date. From this report, excuse me, you're able to see balance types and range. So what I mean by that is you can look at just credit balances, you can look at positive balances, you can look at all. You can say, okay, I only want to see, you know, AR from $0 to 1,000. You know, you can break that up, or you can just look at everything. If you want to look at AR for specific facilities, facility groups, insurance names, or insurance groups, you can do that, or you can include all. Same with provider. Excuse me again, allergies. But when it comes to the patient and guarantor, where you see that, that's of course going to apply on that patient AR. And then you have different ranges. So it's going to break up into 30-day increments, starting from 0 to 30 until you get to 180. Then it's going to be 180 plus. Excuse me again. So when you view that report, you're going to see the AR ranges. You're going to see the balances. From that, because it's going to be in HTML, unless you've run it in the background and maybe set it to look at Excel or something, it's going to be at that HTML level, and it's really just going to be that summary. But you would have the ability, there would be blue hyperlinks to click in, and you can see that detail. You can also export that into Excel, PDF, so on and so forth. And then you can group that AR. So that's really at that filter level that you would have some grouping options. So if you want to see that AR grouped together by each facility, maybe each insurance group, or by each provider, you can do that just so it kind of organizes that report a little bit more. So the next report that I'm going to touch base on is 3614, financial analysis at claim level with everything. So the next report we're also going to talk about is very similar to this report, but there's a big, very similar, but a big difference with that. So if you're wanting to look at billed charges, payments, adjustments, whether contractual, write-offs, refunds, things like that, just at a claim level, this is a good report to use. So again, you'll have that ability to see claim date versus service date, set your date range, facilities, insurances, patients, you know, that you can filter by. And then you can see all the different transactions that it will display, or you can pick certain ones from the list. But this associated versus unassociated, I want to make sure to talk about, because on a lot of these financial reports, you're going to see that as a transaction type option. So it's best to really explain the difference between associated versus unassociated by using an example, I think. So if I'm wanting to see, maybe I'm running this report and I'm really wanting to look at payments and adjustments. And if I am setting my claim date from August 1st to August 31st of 2020, if I select associated, it's only going to show me payments and adjustments for claims that were created between August 1st to August 31st. But, and if that's what I'm wanting to see is just payments for claims with a date within that range, I definitely want to go with associated. But if I'm wanting to look at really all payments and adjustments for a particular date range, I'm still going to say claim date, but then I'm going to pick August 1st and still pick August 1st or August 31st, I'm sorry, but then I'm going to say unassociated because that's going to then show me transactions for claims for dates that are within that range, but then also other transactions that came in. So might have to let that settle a bit. I can also answer questions later on that. But then in that report, you're going to see the transaction type. So what I mean by that, you're going to have different columns for billed charges, total payments, insurance payments, patient payments, contractual adjustments, so on and so forth. Same with the other report. You can drill in if it's an HTML because it's kind of just going to be a summary overview. You can drill into that claim detail. You can export. And then again, you can still organize your report essentially before you run it to see that claim level analysis organized by facility, insurance provider, so on and so forth. So the next report that we're going to see here is 3708. So everything basically I said about 3614, all of that's still going to apply. The difference is this report is at a CPT level. So if you are wanting to see transactions at that actual CPT level and not just the claim level, this is going to be the report that you want to use. So, obviously billed charges are always going to be at a CPT level, but when we get to the exceptions here in a few minutes, we'll talk about maybe transactions that don't get carried forward to the CPT level for payments or refunds or adjustments. But as long as you're doing that, then this CPT level report would be what you want to review. So that's one of my favorite reports within eBO. So the next two reports, we're going to talk about 3709, which is fee schedule allowable versus claim payments, and then we're going to talk about an RVU report. But on this 3709, it's important to know with this report that when we say fee schedule allowable, it's simply whatever fee schedule or schedules, I should say, that you have within ECW. So if you are looking to see if you're getting underpaid by Blue Cross or UHC, and if you don't have fee schedules built in the system for them, then this report's not going to be too helpful to you. Luckily, with a lot of clearinghouses, you do have the ability, several of ours that are preferred, where there's a tool that you can load those fee schedule contracted rates and do some analysis from that. But in order to report the data from ECW, in order, your output, you have to have input in there as well. So for this fee schedule allowable versus claim payment, you can look at it by different types of dates. Again, that associated versus unassociated. Then you can say if you want to see all payments, if you just want to see payments that are less than the fee schedule allowable, and then you can look at payments that are greater than the fee schedule allowable. And then, again, you can see everything, or you can filter that by certain providers, facilities, insurances, or CPT codes. And you can group that as well. But essentially on that report, besides just seeing the dates and the claim ID that's for, it's going to show you what pulls in from that fee schedule attached to that claim in CPT. It's going to say the charge allowed fee, the payment allowed fee, and the payment percentage. So a quick example there. Let's say on a CPT that your charge allowed fee on the fee schedule is loaded as $100, but the payment allowed fee was only $50 is what came from the payer and was posted. So your payment percentage is then going to be 50%. Okay. So the next report and the last one we talk about with the financial and rev cycle before moving into a few exceptions is the RVU report, the work in total. So my disclaimer on this is to make sure that you run the populate dummy CPT code RVU RVU utility via the report console. So that's available. If you go to reports, report console, then towards the bottom, there's the utility section, and you would see that populate dummy CPT code RVU utility. What that's for is if you have custom CPT codes that you've built in your system and that you're using, when you run these RVU reports, you want to make sure that this utility is run, because that is what's going to pull those custom codes. So for that, again, you have a summary and a detail option. You can look at the RVUs by claim type. So if it's PICFA, UB, dental, date range and type. So what I mean by that is claim versus service. RVU year. So if you have all your RVU years loaded, but let's say you only want to, you're trying to run it by 2018, you would want to pick that versus 2020. And then you can see it as well at the insurance facility provider or CPT level. You can group that. That report is going to show you those work RVUs, total RVUs, the bill charges tied to those, and the billed units tied to those as well. So it's a really, really good report. So now we're going to move into the exceptions. So these reports are important. Really, this first one, kind of back to that when I talk about the CPT level. So let's say you're trying to do a reconciliation and you ran 3614 and you ran 3708, and 3708 is less than 3614. Like your CPT level is less than your claim level. That's a sign that you have some transactions, whether payments, refunds, or write-offs, that were not carried through during the time of posting to the CPT level. So this is a report we recommend, depending on what your volume is, for sure running it monthly, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every week. But you can set a date range, pick your date type, pick your transaction type of associated versus unassociated. And when that report runs, it's going to show you unposted payments at the CPT level, unposted refunds, and unposted write-offs as well. And then our 44 reports, we have 3 that we're going to talk about. So facilities not in a group. So when you export that, that's going to show a facility group, which if the facility is not in a group, that's going to be blank, the facility name, and then if that facility is deleted or not. So the importance of that, I do have that noted here, but if you are running reports and looking at things by facility group, and if you have some facilities that you currently use but they're not in a group, you're going to be missing transactions because it's only going to pull transactions tied to a facility that's in a group. So if you are using facility groups, make sure that any facilities that you would have transactions posted to, that those are allocated to a group. And it's going to be a very similar philosophy when we look at the next to the 4404, which is insurances not in a group, and then 4405, I believe it is, for insurances in more than one group. So same concept. If you're looking at reporting at the insurance group level, then you want to make sure that you don't have insurances that you're using that aren't in a group, and you want to make sure that you don't have insurances in more than one group, because if you're using insurances not in a group, then that's not going to be allocated. Now, on a lot of reports, it will show as like an unknown, but that can sometimes combine with patient, and then you don't really know where it belongs. So, definitely make sure at least monthly, every 2 weeks or so, that you're looking at insurances to make sure that they are in a group and that they're not in more than one group, because what will happen if the insurance is in more than one group is it's going to be double counted essentially, or counted 3 times, depending on how many groups it's in on your report. So let's say you have a $100 charge and for a UHC insurance, and that UHC insurance is tied to a group called UHC and a group called commercial. Then that charge is going to show as $200. One time is $100 in the UHC group, and one time is $100 in the commercial group. So these 2 reports are really important to make sure that you are looking at if you're running things by the insurance group. So that is what I have for today as far as some basic and intermediate eBO reporting. So Caitlin, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kim, and big thanks to Terese, both of you, for taking time to present today. We're going to transition into questions. We have just a few minutes here, so if we don't get to your question, we will reach out to you after the webinar so that we can help you and just answer that question for you. Quick reminder, when you do exit the webinar, you'll get a quick survey that's going to pop up. If you could just let us know how we did. We use all of your feedback to create future webinars on topics just like this one. So we really appreciate that feedback. So some of the questions that I'm seeing, one question, Terese, I think this one might be for you, is what about practices that are only on the desktop version? So I'm assuming that's probably referring to that PM analytics.
Unfortunately, they will not have access to the analytics tab. It's only found in the browser version.
Okay, great. And then the next one, if you are a multiple specialty group with many practices, are there settings so managers only see their specific practices, or is it driven by facility?
Regarding the PM analytics?
Yeah, I think that one came in pretty early, so I think that one is regarding the PM analytics.
Just a second. Because when you run reports, hang on just a second. Within those reports, you have your filters by patient, provider, facility. It doesn't, when you have access to it, it doesn't say that you only have access to a particular facility. There's no limitations on that I'm aware of. So you get access to everything.
Okay, so then they can't set it up to where they're only seeing a specific practice.
Not that I'm aware of. Now, again, there may be some specific settings if they're using facility security that they maybe only can see, but this actually gives everyone that I'm aware of access to the whole analytics tab.
Okay, great. Thanks, Terese.
Thank
One
you.
of the questions that came in was also whether we were going to discuss non-financial analytics. And since we kind of wrapped up today already, I'd be really curious to hear from all of you if there are other, clinical analytics that you want us to present on in a future webinar. And then Kim, I think this question is probably for you. The claim aging detail doesn't have the member insurance ID anymore. Can you show me which aging report we should use right now? I don't know if that's one that you had already covered.
It is not, but I can actually, I do know there is one. Let me, if you can send that one to me, Caitlin, and then we can follow up with that after the webinar.
Yes, we will do that. So that is noted. The other is, how do I put a report in my folders tab?
Okay, yeah, let me.
And
so that was.
Back over.
Yeah, so that would actually be, and I can send a screenshot though as well, so Caitlin, you could forward that on to that individual, because it looks like my internet timed out. So that's perfect timing. But that would be like whenever I was showing how you could even create, how you can create folders. There's that section where you can select, what folder you want that to be in. You can say. It works the same within a report, like within the report view, that you can save that, because what I would honestly recommend creating a report view for that, which we can send those instructions since that wasn't something we went over today. And then that can include a screenshot that will show you how you could put it in my folders. I would never recommend putting a report from the package level into a particular custom folder or in the My Folders. So I can definitely send you more information on that.
Okay, yeah, and I know we're about 2 minutes over, so it looks like we got to most of the questions. Like I said, if we did not get to one that you had in here, I see a few, we're going to reach out to you individually. And again, if you have a question that we didn't get to that you think of later, you can go ahead and submit that actually in the survey. So we'd love to hear from you. And again, if you want to learn more about Revele and how we can help your practice, just let us know and we will get in touch today. Terese, was there anything else you wanted to add, or Kim, before we wrap up today's webinar?
I did, Kim. I wanted to say that if they are using the EXE, they have the ability that they can launch the 11 e-browser if they go to their help menu. And they can also reach out to us if we are their support, or they can also contact ECW as well. And they can help get the icons, just very similar to their EXE desktop icon, added to their desktop. Hang on just a second. Okay, so up here at the top, do you see where it says a launch? If they are on version 11, they should have access to their URL that they can actually get in there and see it. And it should launch it from here. If mine doesn't, remember it's a training database, but in their particular case, it should be able to open up from there. But they can also, like I said, if we are their support, they can contact us to help with putting those icons on their desktop, or they can contact ECW support as well to put those icons so that they can play with it if they want for the version 11e, the browser version.
All right, perfect. Thanks,
Thank
Terese.
you. Thank you.
All right, well, I think that's all we had. We will send out the slide deck and the recording, and then also include those previous sessions from today. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed today's webinar.